My name was Adem. I was a Muslim doctor, respected in a conservative Turkish community that valued tradition above all. I dedicated my life to healing the sick, earning honor and praise for my work. But beneath my white coat, in the silence of my heart, an unsettling emptiness festered. I prayed fervently, yet all I felt was a haunting void. Questions that echoed in my mind but were silenced by the weight of expectation. Then, everything changed. A tragic car accident brought me to the brink of death, a place I had never imagined I would visit. In that pitch-black abyss, I was met by a radiant presence, illuminating the darkness I thought I knew so well. Jesus called my name. Not to judge, but to reveal a truth that shattered everything I believed about faith and fear, about the very essence of existence. During that meeting, I was shown a war that transcended earthly battles, a spiritual conflict between light and darkness, one so many are blind to. In that moment, everything shifted. I realized I had been living in chains, shackled by a dogma that no longer resonated with my soul. Paradoxically, in that near-death experience, I discovered the freedom that comes from surrendering to a truth that beckoned me, one that contradicted the faith of my ancestors. Returning to life was a torment. Stripped of my former beliefs, I faced scorn from my community, labeling me a heretic in the face of my newfound understanding. I grappled with guilt and isolation, struggling to share the revelation that had brought me peace while fearing the loss of everything I had once known. My heart longed for connection, a place where truth could blossom without fear. So I sought out the Bible in secret, yearning for understanding, and found a small community of believers who, like me, had wrestled with the divine and emerged changed. I made an audacious choice: to pray to Jesus, to ask for courage, to break the chains of expectation and embrace my spiritual awakening. I had glimpsed the light, a blazing flame of truth ignited by my encounter with Jesus, and it couldn't be extinguished. The urgency to share this truth with my family and community clawed at me. But how could I challenge foundations that I had once defended? The fear of backlash loomed large. In my mind, I envisioned conversations that could unravel relationships, destroying bonds that had held me stable for so long. I felt an overwhelming need to articulate the spiritual war that was playing out within and around me, a battle for the souls caught in darkness and deceit. In the weeks that followed, I observed the dynamics of my community shift subtly yet drastically. Friends became distant. Some openly criticized me, while others whispered in hushed tones, sowing seeds of doubt among those who still held on to traditional beliefs. I felt like a stranger in a place where I had once felt secure and accepted. The very fabric of life as I knew it unraveled in the wake of a spiritual awakening that demanded sincerity above all else. With Jesus' message resonating in my soul, I could no longer shy away from the truths burning within me. I longed for a space where I could express the reality of this spiritual journey, yet each day felt more isolating, leading me to question whether I would ever be able to bridge the gap back to my family and friends. Now, as I stood on the precipice of my new reality, I felt an internal struggle clawing for resolution. The truths I had uncovered, the urgency of the awakening I had felt, beckoned me to step into the light. But the fear of alienation, rejection, and the potential loss of everything I had known haunted me. I was acutely aware of the risk involved in challenging the status quo. Would I be able to find my voice amidst the chaos? Could I face the spiritual war ahead, armed only with the truth and a desire to serve not just my own awakening, but the awakening of those around me? It was a question that echoed in the silence, urging me to step forward despite the fears that threatened to hold me back, ready to embrace the path that awaited. In the days following my encounter with Jesus, a shift began to emerge within me. The emptiness I had felt transformed into a yearning for connection, not just with my faith, but with those who walked a similar path. Despite the trepidation that enveloped me, I secretly turned my attention to the Bible, wary of how my newfound desire might be perceived in my community. I found ways to explore its pages in solitude, digging for truths that resonated with my awakening. Each verse sparked something deep within, drawing me into the stories and teachings I had once held at arm's length. It was during this solitary exploration that I stumbled upon a small group of Christians who were eager to embrace my journey. Meeting with that group felt like coming home in a way I had never anticipated. We shared experiences, fears, and revelations in a dimly lit room that bore witness to our transformation. Together, we navigated the spiritual war raging outside our doors, talking about how the elite manipulated narratives to sustain their hidden agendas. I felt understood for the first time, and their camaraderie began to peel back layers of isolation that had encased my heart since my encounter with Jesus. Their acceptance provided solace amidst the storm of turmoil that brewed within me. Yet, in the midst of this newfound belonging, a dark cloud of fear loomed overhead. The more I connected with them, the more I realized how much I had to lose. Doubt crept in as I began to understand the stakes of my journey. I knew that my association with this group could lead to backlash from my family and community, where traditions were not questioned but accepted as unbreakable rules. How would they respond if they discovered my beliefs had shifted? It was a delicate balancing act, participating in meetings filled with warmth and understanding, while simultaneously wrestling with the guilt of defiance. The shadows of apprehension haunted me. Would my loved ones see me as a traitor for seeking truth outside the rigid constructs that had defined my life? Or would they find it in their hearts to support me, even if it meant walking a path entirely different from the one we once shared? As we gathered week after week, the shared stories deepened my convictions while simultaneously heightening my sense of urgency. Each encounter became a reminder of the incredible deception that lay just beneath the surface of societal norms. Together, we dissected the tensions of the world we lived in. Wars fueled by greed, division wrought from ignorance. These were not just distant issues but reflections of the struggles playing out in our own lives. It became clear that I was not just on a personal journey. I was now a part of a collective awakening that pushed back against the darkness I had once blindly accepted. In the quiet moments between discussions, I often found my thoughts spiraling into contemplation. A revelation had coursed through my life, one that compelled me to share the light I had received. Yet, I couldn't shake the looming uncertainties. As fear clawed at my mind, I recognized that staying silent could very well undermine the very truth I now embraced. What would it take to turn that fear into action? As I wrestled with that question, a resolve began to surface. Perhaps the risk of losing everything was worth it to stand firm in the truth Jesus had revealed to me. I felt my heart racing as I thought of the choice I faced: to remain cloaked in the safety of familiar traditions or to boldly declare the new life awakening inside me. Every discussion with my newfound community lit a fire of courage, urging me to consider what it truly means to live out one's faith authentically. I felt a growing responsibility not just to myself, but to those who might be waiting for their own awakening. As each meeting concluded and we went our separate ways, I felt more resolved to challenge the deception that held so many in chains. Yet, the question remained: could I truly embrace the truth at the cost of everything I had known? The mounting tension wrapped around me like a heavy blanket as the answer loomed just within reach, waiting to erupt into the light of day. The moment I emerged from the shadows of my near-death experience, A divine calling echoed in my heart, demanding my attention with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I was Adem, a doctor by profession, yet in that critical moment I encountered Jesus, who revealed so much about the nature of truth and deception that had previously escaped my comprehension. His radiance illuminated a dark void, exposing the threads of a spiritual war that played out not only within my soul but in the world beyond. As I contemplated the implications of that encounter, I grasped the responsibility placed upon me to spread the truth I had discovered, even if it meant risking everything. Each day since that revelation felt more like a battle than a routine. I recalled hushed conversations among those still tied to their traditions, their minds tethered by an invisible force that kept them ignorant of the spiritual warfare surrounding them. I felt threatened by the hidden agendas of the elite, those who pulled the strings behind a curtain of deception, perpetuating an environment that fostered division and distrust across societies. The weight of their manipulation weighed heavily on my conscience, amplifying a sense of urgency to share what had been instilled in me by Jesus. I was called not just to heal bodies, but to instigate an awakening in the hearts of those around me. As I began to share snippets of my experience, I encountered an array of reactions. Some welcomed my message with open arms, finding camaraderie in the truth I spoke. Others recoiled, fear etched on their faces as if my words posed a threat to their long-standing beliefs. The tension hung in the air, palpable and thick. In my heart, I understood the risks. My family might denounce me. Friends could turn their backs, and I could become an outcast in the very community I had been a part of for so long. But with each encounter, I felt a fierce determination rising within me that the truth could no longer remain locked away in the recesses of my mind. I often reflected on the very nature of the deception encircling us. The spiritual warfare I had come to recognize was not fought with swords or soldiers. It was a conflict of ideology painted in shades of fear and conformity. Jesus had shown me the path, illuminated the way to freedom, and I could no longer sit idly by while others remained ensnared in the grip of complacency. I pictured families torn apart by conflicts fueled by lies and propaganda, and I knew that to stand for the truth meant potentially losing those I cared about most. Yet, I was increasingly aware that to remain silent would be to contribute to the same hidden agenda that kept the faithful in chains. As I walked this narrow path, I felt the hand of the divine guiding me, offering solace amidst the storm of doubt. I began to delve deeper into discussions about the very fabric of society, dissecting the ways technology could either liberate or enslave us. I uncovered a pattern. Leaders manipulated narratives, distracting us from the truths that lay in plain sight. I grew more emboldened in sharing these perspectives, using my medical background to draw parallels between physical healing and spiritual enlightenment. Just as my patients need treatment, I would say, we too require healing for our souls, healing from the deception that surrounds us. The fire of conviction surged within me, energizing my resolve to spread the message of awakening. Yet, as my community remained divided and the pressure mounted, I felt the weight of fear looming like a dark cloud overhead. I questioned my courage in the face of adversity. Was I truly ready to confront the backlash that might come from speaking out? I envisioned the faces of my family and the pain it would bring to them if they rejected who I had become. With every prayer I sought clarity and strength, understanding that the road ahead was fraught with peril. But the urgency pulsed through my veins as I felt the call to rise up, a call to arm myself with the truth and step boldly into the light, even if it meant facing the darkness alone. The spiritual war was real. I had seen it, and now it was my responsibility to illuminate that path for others, no matter the personal cost that lay ahead. In the wake of my encounter with Jesus, I felt a profound shift within me. The realization that my life had to change was a heavy burden to bear, yet it crackled with an undeniable spark of hope. I was Adem, a doctor deeply rooted in my traditions, yet those traditions had slowly become a source of conflict within my soul. It was time to rise up, to embody the courage that I had longed for in my heart. As I symbolically left my family's home, I felt like I was shedding an old skin, one that had suffocated my spirit for far too long. The path ahead was unknown, fraught with peril, but the calling I had felt was clearer than ever. Every step away from my past was weighted with anxiety. I could hear my family's voices echoing in my mind, their expectations pressing heavily on my shoulders. But as I moved forward, I felt the grip of fear loosening its hold. This new mission of evangelism was not simply about me. It was woven into a larger tapestry of awakening, an urgent battle against the deception that kept so many in darkness. I remembered the hidden agenda of the elite, an elite that thrived on the ignorance and division among people. I had glimpsed the spiritual war that raged beneath the surface, and I knew I couldn't remain silent any longer. Finding my purpose brought me strength. My heart raced as I envisioned the lives I could touch, those who were struggling with the same doubts and fears I had encountered. Each day that passed reinforced my commitment to spreading the truth I had come to know. I reached out to those in my community, sharing snippets of my experience in casual conversations, planting seeds of curiosity and hope. With every shared story, I felt the light of conviction, illuminating pathways of integrity, shedding light on the darkness that often clouded our discussions about faith and belief. My conviction grew stronger. I was no longer merely a spectator in this spiritual war, but now a fervent participant. The stakes were high, and as I engaged with individuals eager for change, I felt the fear of backlash rise within me again. My heart raced at the thought of being rejected, or worse, ostracized. Still, the passion I felt for my mission overshadowed those anxieties. I recalled the faces of patients I had served, their eyes filled with desperation and longing for comfort. I recalled the journeys of those on the fringes, who needed the healing that my newfound beliefs could offer. I had been where they were, lost, confused, and seeking answers. I could no longer stand by while they experienced the pain of spiritual deception. As I continued to share my journey, the community I began to build became a refuge, a place where we could discuss the truths of life and the hidden agendas that dictated our reality. We formed a network, an awakened group, eager to challenge societal norms and illuminate the truth buried under layers of false narratives. I witnessed the transformative power of shared beliefs, an awakening that reverberated through every conversation, stoking the flames of faith in those around me. Yet as our community grew stronger, so did the realization that speaking out would not come without consequences. The deeper I delved into the truths unveiled to me, the more apprehension swirled within me about what the future might hold. Despite the uncertainty, I felt an unwavering conviction take root in my heart. It became clear that my mission couldn't be confined to just a few conversations. I had to step into the limelight of my faith and declare the truths I had come to understand. I prepared myself for the risks ahead, knowing that aligning myself with this profound revelation could lead to isolation from my family or rejection from my community. However, the urgency of the spiritual war unfolding around me called me forth, each heartbeat echoing the promise of hope I was now armed with. The choice was clear. I could either succumb to fear or rise above it, allowing the light of truth to guide me into uncharted territories of faith and purpose. The decision lay ahead, and I felt that awakening pulse within me, daring me to embrace the challenge. Years had passed since I left my home, but the imprint of my former life still lingered in the shadows of my heart. Now settled in a new city, I dedicated myself to sharing the transformative message of Jesus. Each day was a new opportunity to connect with individuals on their own faith journeys, but the echoes of my past continued to haunt me. I was Adem, a doctor turned evangelist, propelled by the revelation I had received during my near-death experience. My mission was to illuminate the spiritual war that raged outside, the conflict between light and darkness, truth and deception. The journey had been challenging, but the hope I carried for reconciliation with my family served as a constant reminder of the stakes involved. The new community I found embraced me with open arms, infusing my spirit with renewed vigor. I shared my testimony, recounting how I had prayed for a patient in desperation and encountered Jesus in a way that shattered my previous understanding of faith. They listened intently as I illuminated the hidden agendas of the elite, the powerful forces manipulating the narratives we accepted blindly. The more I shared, the clearer it became that my experiences resonated with those struggling to reconcile their beliefs with the harsh realities of the world. I had become part of something larger than myself, forging connections that transcended the isolation I once experienced. Each conversation felt like a battle cry, encouraging others to awaken their spirits and challenge the deception that had held them captive. Yet, despite the joy I found in this new mission, a constant tension tugged at my heart. My thoughts often drifted back to my family, to my parents who likely mourned the loss of their son to what they perceived as heresy. I longed to bridge the gap, to show them that I hadn't abandoned my faith. I had transformed and expanded it. With every passing moment, I found solace in the hope that one day they might understand my journey and the truth that had ignited that flame within me. But the fear of rejection haunted me. Would they embrace me with open arms? Or would I forever be an outcast, just another victim of the larger spiritual war we continually fought? As I prayed for my family, I felt the weight of a world poised on the precipice of awakening. The division in society stood stark against the backdrop of my own struggles. I knew what it felt like to be torn between two worlds, caught in the crossfire of beliefs that seemed irreconcilable. I witnessed firsthand the pain of those who suffered under the deception fostered by political leaders and societal elites. My heart ached for the families torn apart by discord and misinformation. This was not merely an isolated crisis, it was a collective struggle born from generations of manipulation. In conversations with those seeking the truth, our shared experiences felt like pieces of a larger puzzle slowly coming together. I began organizing small gatherings, offering a space for individuals to explore the depths of their beliefs openly. We shared our struggles, our doubts, and our desires for connection with the divine. My experiences became a beacon of hope for those who grappled with their faith as I once had. The fear that had once paralyzed me began to dissipate in the face of unity and understanding. Yet, the underlying anxiety of losing everything remained, lurking just beneath the surface. The tension between my mission and my past weighed heavily on my thoughts. How could I reconcile the differences that lay between my family and my new purpose? Each day brought fresh challenges, but each moment spent witnessing to others reignited my commitment to the truth I now held so dear. As I pressed forward, emboldened by a fire that refused to be quenched, I realized that the awakening I sought was not just for myself but for those around me. I felt an urgent call to share the light I had received, even if it meant walking into the storm of rejection. Every interaction became an opportunity to challenge the perceptions that had long gripped our society. The stakes were high, and I was fully aware of the risks involved in my journey. I stood firm, ready to confront any backlash, knowing that the truth must prevail against the forces of darkness. The spiritual war raged on, but I was determined to be a warrior of light, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. and to embrace my calling with open arms. Now that you've joined me on this journey, I must ask you something vital. Have you ever felt the profound call of truth stirring deep within your soul? But this video isn't just about my journey. It's about the awakening many are experiencing. Even now, perhaps in your own life, a truth awaits those brave enough to seek it out. As we begin this journey together, I want to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it now for you? Please leave a comment below and connect with this unfolding truth. And if you love Jesus and crave more revelations, hit that subscribe button for Truth from Beyond. What you're about to hear is more than a story. It's a call to awakening and transformation. The journey has just begun. In the heart of a conservative Turkish city, I was known as Adem, a respected doctor who had dedicated his life to helping others. From a young age, I had embraced my Islamic faith, drawn to its teachings and the sense of community it provided. Yet, as my career flourished, so did a nagging unease. I was increasingly gripped by the chasm between my deep-rooted beliefs and unsettling doubts that gnawed at my conscience. It was a spiritual war raging inside me, hidden from the world around me. As I navigated the demands of my profession, the weight of secrecy felt like a dense fog enveloping my soul, making me feel isolated in a community where questions about faith were met with an uneasy silence. One fateful day, a patient came to me in dire condition. Her eyes were filled with desperation, a reflection of the anguish I often witnessed in my line of work. As I prepared to aid her, I couldn't shake an overwhelming urge to pray. I crouched beside her bed, whispering prayers for her healing, and then, for reasons that I still can't fully comprehend, I prayed to Jesus. Something deep within me stirred as I uttered his name, a strange solace sweeping over me. I hadn't fully realized the significance of that moment until I closed my eyes and felt myself slipping away. The world around us, with its shadows and deceptions, often tries to drown out that inner voice. It's easy to dismiss this calling as mere distraction amid the chaos of headlines and noise. But what if I told you that we are all participants in a greater narrative, a divine script that acknowledges our struggles and our awakenings? In that profound moment of encounter with Jesus, I was not just reborn in spirit, I was handed a torch, a light against the deepening darkness that surrounds us. Each of us carries the potential to awaken, to break free from the chains of societal programming, and to seek the truth that resides within. The stakes have never been higher, my friends, for this is a spiritual war that calls for our urgent attention. Are we to remain silent pawns in a game rigged against us, or will we step forward as brave souls willing to challenge the deception? Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt that pull towards something greater, a spark of truth within? Have you experienced moments that reshaped your understanding of faith, of reality itself? Please share your insights in the comments below. Your voice is powerful, and your experiences matter. Remember, you are not alone on this path. Together, we can illuminate the shadows that seek to keep us confined. And if my story resonates with you, if you're ready to explore deeper truths, please subscribe to our channel, Truth from Beyond, and ring the notification bell. By doing so, you ensure you won't miss the vital messages and stories that are coming next. Each episode is designed to awaken your spirit, to peel back the layers of deception, and to reveal what lies beyond the veil of our earthly existence. In our next video, I'll share the astonishing testimony of another who encountered the divine, breaking through their own barriers of doubt and fear. Thank you for your time and openness. I'm Adem, and remember this: your awakening is a vital part of a larger tapestry of truth. Step boldly into the light. In an instant, I found myself in an otherworldly void, suspended between life and death, and it was there that I encountered Jesus. His presence illuminated the dark space around me. Instead of the judgment I anticipated, I was enveloped in an unconditional love that washed over me like a warm wave. "You seek truth," he said, his voice both gentle and commanding, "but the deception around you is vast and cunning. The elite have crafted a narrative that keeps you shackled, blind to the awakening that lies within." Every word rang true and struck me like a bolt of lightning. I felt my heart racing as layers of understanding began to peel away, revealing truths I had buried deep in the recesses of my mind. I saw glimpses of the manipulation that governed not just my life, but the world around me: political strife, social division, and a technological awakening that was both beautiful and terrifying. In that space, Jesus revealed how the spiritual war was not merely personal, it was collective. "You are not alone," he said. "Many are searching for the truth, but few have the courage to speak it." In that moment, I felt an awakening surge within me, stirring long-forgotten courage. I saw the faces of my family, my patients, my community. They were ensnared in a cycle of fear and obedience, unaware of the freedom that awaited them. The hidden agenda, orchestrated by those in power, had created a society divided, orchestrating wars and conflicts to distract and control us. As I struggled to process the vastness of these revelations, I began to understand the imperative to act. The frightening reality was clear. Every moment spent in silence was a moment lost to ignorance, to manipulation, to fear. I was called to share this truth, despite the emotional turmoil it could unleash within my community. I envisioned the conversations that would ensue, the faces of loved ones that might twist in anger or disbelief. The stakes felt monumental. How did one challenge centuries of tradition without losing everything he held dear? Opening my eyes, I found myself back in the hospital room, gasping for breath. My patient looked at me, panicked yet hopeful. I didn't fully comprehend the power of that encounter until later, when I realized that my prayer had been answered in the most profound way possible. It was just the beginning. The spiritual war that I had once struggled with became a cause I felt deeply compelled to champion. I felt a new mission taking root within me, to guide others towards this awakening, to challenge the fear that had been instilled in us by generations of deception. But how could I share this revelation, a truth illuminating my path, without risking everything? It was a question that haunted me as I stood at the precipice of a new chapter in my life. What awaited me next on this journey into the unknown? As I sat on the edge of my bed in the stillness of the night, a profound emptiness wrapped around me like a shroud. I was Adem, a doctor respected in my community and devoted to my faith. Yet, every prayer I uttered seemed to dissolve into the air around me, lost in a void that felt increasingly distant from the connection I longed for. My nights were filled with unsettling dreams that only heightened my disconnection from the beliefs I had held dear for so long. Images of faces filled with despair merged with the haunting whispers of my own doubts. I found myself grappling with an internal conflict that felt like a spiritual war, one that left me feeling isolated and unanchored in a world that demanded certainty. I would kneel in prayer, a ritual so ingrained in me, yet each moment was weighed down by the gnawing sense that something was amiss. My heart felt heavy with unmet expectations, those of my family, my community, and the weight of my own faith. It was during these prayers that I began to question everything I had been taught. Was I merely going through the motions, or was I truly engaging with the divine? The more I sought answers, the deeper my yearning grew. The truth I sought felt elusive, slipping further away like sand through my fingers. It was as if a hidden agenda had been woven into my reality, keeping me blind to a connection I desperately craved. The dreams intensified in detail and urgency. I began to see symbols that echoed through my waking life, a sense of impending revelation. They were filled with images of a world racked with division and conflict, where power was wielded by a select few, ruling through the manipulation of truth. It alarmed me to witness the elite orchestrating a narrative steeped in fear and deception. I watched helplessly as people followed blindly, their eyes clouded by the smoke of rhetoric designed to control rather than liberate. The thought echoed in my mind, was my adherence to tradition keeping me shackled to this cycle of ignorance? The weight of it all felt unbearable, igniting a longing for awakening within me. One night, in the depth of a particularly vivid dream, I found myself enveloped in darkness, an abyss I was frightened to traverse. But in that overwhelming void, a figure emerged, radiant and full of love. Jesus stood before me. Time seemed to freeze as I fell to my knees, all prior fears melting away in the aura of his presence. "You are searching for truth," he spoke, his voice reverberating through my soul. "But your fear of questioning the deception that binds you is holding you back." Those words ignited something within me, a flicker of hope in the sorrow I had been carrying. It was a revelation that shattered the confines of my reality, igniting the flame of awakening. As our conversation unfurled, Jesus shared insights that tackled the very core of my internal struggles. I felt empowered and terrified simultaneously. He showed me the interwoven threads of conflict around the world, illuminated the darkness cloaking social injustices, and revealed the beautiful potential that lay in embracing the truth. This was not just a personal journey. It was a shared battle cry for all who sought liberation from the chains of manipulation and fear. I had witnessed firsthand the anguish caused by blindly following doctrines without grappling with their foundations. Jesus laid the path before me, challenging me to break free from the constraints that kept my spirit in chains. The revelation shook me to my core, awakening a desire not merely to heal, but to awaken others to the truth I had been shown. Returning to my life after that encounter felt monumental. I now faced the question that loomed large. How could I reconcile my newfound awareness with the expectations of my community? The very traditions that once offered comfort now felt suffocating, and I wrestled with my fear of rejection, of losing my family and my place in their hearts. Each prayer I uttered afterward bore an urgency I couldn't ignore. I realized I was being called to share my experience, to illuminate the path for others caught in their own shadows. The journey ahead felt perilous yet exhilarating, with the promise of awakening pulling me forward as I sought to understand my place in this vast spiritual war. The day began like any other, but the familiar grind of existence turned into a cacophony of chaos in the blink of an eye. I was Adem, a devoted doctor navigating the busy streets of my conservative Turkish city, deeply entrenched in the routine that shaped my life. Everything shifted dramatically when a car careened into my path. The moment I felt the impact, time froze. I remember the darkness crashing over me as I lost consciousness, feeling as if I was slipping away from my body, detached from every earthly concern. It was then that I entered a profound spiritual trance, engulfed in a void so deep I could feel its weight pressing against me. In that dark realm, a brightness pierced the shadows, and I soon found myself in the presence of Jesus. He stood before me, radiant and full of love, calling my name with a familiarity that sent shockwaves through my soul. "Adem," he spoke, "you're searching for truth in the midst of a spiritual war." His words resonated with an urgency I had never felt before, awakening something deep within me that I didn't even realize was asleep. I was overwhelmed with emotion as he began to reveal the battle between light and darkness, exposing the deception that had long clouded my understanding of faith and existence. It was at that moment that I recognized the weight of the hidden agenda orchestrated by unseen forces, the elite playing the role of puppeteers in a world marred by suffering and strife. As we conversed, flashes of global conflict and societal division filled my mind. I could see the manipulation of leaders choosing to sow discord, driving wedges between communities, and fostering an environment of fear. The lives of ordinary people hung in the balance, all while the elite prospered in the shadows. Jesus guided me through these troubling visions, revealing how spiritual awakening could counteract the lies that blinded so many. "The truth is within you, and you must share it," he urged, and I realized my calling was far more than I had ever imagined. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed heavily on my shoulders, and I knew I had to confront it head-on. In those moments of divine revelation, I saw the interconnectedness of our struggles. My own inner turmoil mirrored the chaos of the world outside. The spiritual war was not just within me. It was a global confrontation against deception, an awakening that had to be ignited across the hearts of many. Yet, the thread of fear wove itself tightly through my thoughts. How could I challenge the beliefs I had been raised on, the very faith that my family held sacred? Their expectations loomed large, casting long shadows over my newfound insight. Would my revelations draw me closer to others, or would I find myself isolated, branded a traitor in my community? As the visions culminated, I felt a surge of empowerment. Jesus stood firm, watching over me with an unwavering gaze, instilling a sense of purpose that felt alien yet familiar. "You are chosen for a reason," he declared, and with each word I felt emboldened. I understood that the awakening I experienced wasn't for my own sake. It was a call to arms for all who felt the stirring of discontent in their souls. I had to be brave, and though fear clawed at me, the truth ignited a fire I could no longer ignore. The incredible sense of liberation that accompanied this revelation overshadowed the fear, propelling me towards a mission that would demand everything from me. Suddenly, the calmness of the void began to fade, and I could feel the pull of my body fighting to return to the physical realm. As I resurfaced into consciousness, gasping for air in the familiar confines of the hospital, I knew I wasn't the same man who had entered that dark space. I had been gifted a truth that must be shared, yet the path ahead was laden with uncertainty. As I looked around the room, I realized the journey was just beginning. How could I muster the courage to share these revelations with those in my life? The questions loomed large in my mind as I prepared to step out into a world that would either welcome me or cast me aside, driven by the urgency of the spiritual war that lay before us all. After the transformative experience where I encountered Jesus, I returned to my life, yet everything felt starkly different. In the aftermath of that extraordinary moment, I knew my existence had been irrevocably altered. The revelation of truth and awakening had burned vibrant within me, but the stark reality of my surroundings quickly set in. I was Adem, a respected doctor in my community, but this newfound faith came at a cost. As the days passed, the once familiar expressions of my colleagues morphed into something unsettling. Hushed whispers, avoided glances, and eventually, outright hostility. I was rapidly branded as a heretic in the eyes of those I once considered friends. Emotionally, I was tossed into a maelstrom of guilt and fear. Questions gnawed at my heart. Was I wrong for questioning the faith I was raised in? The very traditions that had shaped my life now felt like chains constricting my spirit. I wrestled with a profound sense of isolation. How could I reconcile the truth I had embraced with the cultural customs that defined my existence? Each prayer in the still of the night was infused with anguish, as I sought solace from the same beliefs that now left me feeling abandoned. In the darkness, I found myself longing to share the revelation of Jesus, but fear held me captive. Would my family turn their backs on me if they discovered the depths of my awakening? As I navigated through my daily routine, I felt as if I were wearing a mask, smiling on the outside but tormented within. My patients looked to me for comfort and healing, yet inside I felt a growing chasm between who I was and who I was becoming. I often caught myself reflecting on the hidden agenda of those in power, the elite who thrived on ignorance and division. Their manipulation of societal narratives had insulated me in a bubble of unexamined beliefs. The truths I saw now, the deceptions around me, felt like a web designed to keep the masses in a state of compliance. I felt compelled to awaken others to these realities, yet the fear of being ostracized silenced my voice. The tension in my heart escalated as I realized that I could no longer live in the shadows of my former beliefs.